So, and not only that, that is the width of border, how it is adjusting. And we can also have border image repeat. Repeat, you see so many options are there. Repeat round, that means it will repeat around the border. But to repeat round, we have to give an outset also. That means we need border image, so outset. So how many pixels? 5 pixels. So these all we need to configure. But so another attribute is we need to define slice, how many portions to divide. This is lengthy, right? That is the reason we can use shorthand way. What is the shorthand way? Simply you can write border image, and you can put all attributes here. That means you can put the URL. So, and URL contains the images. So border.png. After that, you can keep the width. After that, you can say round, right? You can define all the options. So you can say 5 pixel. So all these options you can manage. So that will keep the borders and define. So by 5 pixel is not directly defined. It is defined by using border outset, actually image outset 5 pixel. I defined like this. Then it can apply that here. You can change, suppose 15 pixel, you can see it outside. I will keep it near to the content. Outside will keep the near to the content. So some 2 pixel, it will keep more near to the content. It depends on how you are defining. So your images also should correctly match for that. Otherwise, you cannot achieve exactly what you are looking for. So images also important. So you need an image properly like this. Then we can put border images and try, right? So this is, you can keep border with different styles, and we can keep border with images. Now, in the CSS, another option is how we can define backgrounds actually. Backgrounds, CSS backgrounds. Actually, backgrounds also simple. The concept of background is nothing but, so background allows to change the background of any content. You can keep the background. And what are the background properties we have? Actually, already some we learned. So we have background properties. We have background color. So we have background color. So we have a background image. We have background repeat. So we have background size, and we have background position. So we have background attachment. So attachment. So these are all the backgrounds. So related options. You have like background clip. So we have background clip, or all together you can use background. So background is actually shorthand. That is shorthand. We can apply the backgrounds. We can configure the backgrounds by using this. Background colors, background images. So how they will work. Just one simple example we will see. Suppose we want to put some background for the body section. So we will say body. So for the body, we have background. Already background color we know. So we have background image URL. So that is some images. In that some image is some shoe.jpg. Now it is set as background image. You can see that is the background image. And you can see by default, this is background image is repeating. If you don't want to repeat, then you can define here. So background repeat as no repeat. That means background will not repeat. We can keep as a repeat X. That means it will repeat among X axis. We can say repeat Y. It will repeat among Y axis, means vertically. It will be repeating vertically. So repeat. So I don't want to repeat, then I can use the option no repeat. Repeat. It's not repeating. And we can change the background size. Background size. So we can define the background size as suppose how many pixels. So width 200 pixels, height also 200 pixels. Then background size will be adjusted to 200 pixels. We can change the background position. So background position. So we can change. So positions we can give like this. We can give pixels. That means 200 pixels x-axis and 300 pixels y-axis. Then it will change its position. Or you can simply write like this. So we can say top right. I given as top right. It will be top right. So I given as top center. It will be top center. I given as center. It will be in the center. So center, why? Because there is no other content. So if you have content, more content, then according to content, it will keep center. Because our page is not having much content. So that means you can see it will be center if there is content. If there is no content, it will keep that like this. So it will be center. And observe here, so the background image is scrolling. Now what we can do is, so instead of scrolling, we can keep a background attachment. We can make it fixed. Then background attachment is fixed. Then only content will be scrolling. The background image will not be scrolling. Background picture will not be scrolling. Only content will be scrolling. That is how we can define the backgrounds. So configure the backgrounds. So background have these all attributes. So background have all these attributes. You can define these attributes. So you can configure these attributes by using background colors or background image. So actually, so background clip is used mostly when you are working with containers like divs, spans. Background clip is important. Actually, suppose you see here, so background, this is background image. We are setting a background image. So example, I will give this as example. Now generally, background clips are used mostly. Suppose we are attaching for a div here. So let's put some paragraph. Okay. And for a div, we are configuring. You see, so for a div, I am applying that. The div is box. I will use as dot box. Okay. For box, we are just, I'm not using all this, just I'm using background color. Background color, some color. Okay. And you can see that background color is applied like this. Now the point is, actually, if it is having padding is 20 pixel, and you can see some space will come, or some 30 pixel, some space will come. Now see, we can have a border also. Border as, so 10 pixel solid. So black something. Okay, and you can see the border also there. Background is up to border. What we can do is, we can say background clip. We can set to content box or border box or margin box. Content box means it will be only to the content, not to the padding. If I want up to the padding box, then I can simply set as padding box. Then it will be up to the padding box. Right? We can put it to the content box, or we can put it into the padding box. So if padding is not there, you can put up to the border box depending on your requirement. That is what actually clip is. So background clips are used for that purpose. So we can put background image We can put background colors. We can change them. Actually, we can put multiple backgrounds also. There can be multiple background images also. We can keep multiple background images. That is regularly asked, how we can keep multiple background images. You can keep multiple background images, but make sure that your background images are correctly placed. Means height, width, and all are correctly mentioned. Otherwise, so you will face problem in that. Suppose, see here, suppose, so I will take body. So, and I want to put a background image. Here I am using URL. Okay. And one image is, so we have images, and suppose we have shoe.jpg. That is one background image. You can put a simple comma, and you can use another URL, and you can put another image. Images slash, so suppose some, so shoe1.jpg. Two images are there in the background. But you can observe that here it is going to display only one. First one only will come. Why? Because we need to adjust and mention how you want to display both of them. So that means one is background repeat I am giving. Background repeat. First image, no repeat. Second image also no repeat. That means we have to write for both of them. Or second one, I can keep it repeat. First one will not repeat, second one will repeat. You can see there is second image also there. But this first image is dominating. So you see in the background, there is a second image also. So that means make sure that your images are simple, small. They allow background transparency. Then only we can adjust, because height width also important. Suppose I am giving background position, suppose I defined as some 400 pixels, 200 pixels. Background position will be adjusted like this. And the size also we need to adjust. So that is background size. And I adjusted suppose 100 pixels background size. The size is adjusted. But you can see only one image. Why? Because the other images are not properly kept in the background. Your images don't suit for that. Let's try one more option. Suppose I will take images correctly, because when you take images, these images, we have to make sure that they are not blocking other images. Images also very important. Suppose in my computer, I have some small images. Take small images for the backgrounds. Suppose we have images. So in the images, we have some box 1, box 2. Okay. We will copy these images and we will keep in our project here. So full stack. Okay. In these images, we have two images. So one is box 1 and box 2. These two are PNG files. Okay. I will use here. So box 1.png and box 2.png. So box 2.png, small images, .png. So then you see two images are there and we are repeating that, and you can see here both images. So we'll display. Now what we will do is here we will write the options. So one is repeat, another one is not repeating. You can see both will come. Images will come. Positions you can keep anywhere you want. That means the first position here. So we say center. That is the position center. You see center according to the content. So this is for the first one. So the second one is repeating. So you don't need to keep center. This is only for first one. So first image is no repeat, second image is repeat. Suppose I say second also no repeat, second also no repeat. That means second one also will not repeat, then you can't see it. Combination is very important. So because if one is not repeating, another is repeating, then you can see it, right? So this is multiple images. So you need correct combinations. If you miss the combination, then you will not see it working. So that means you think that it is not working actually, but actually your images and their placements are not correctly configured. That is the problem that you regularly face generally while keeping these images. So not only two, you can keep three, four, any number of images you can keep background, but make sure that they are small and they are kept with correct placements, multiple backgrounds. We can keep multiple backgrounds. We can configure multiple backgrounds. This is backgrounds. So in CSS, important how we can create the backgrounds, how we can configure the backgrounds. Next, important after understanding borders and backgrounds, in the CSS, you need to know about how do we deal with the positions, the columns, the display effects, how we can manage them. Let's see. In the CSS, another important thing you should know is CSS display. So you need to know is CSS display, which is important. CSS display, how we can define. So till now what we have learned, CSS background, CSS borders, and CSS margins, CSS padding. Those are the things we discussed. Display, that means the display style of element. So it is used to configure. So configure the display style of element, the display style of element. And very important is, so there are, it is defined by using display attribute, and the values for display are, there are several values for display. What are the values for display? So we have inline display, so we have block display, we have grid display, we have flex display, we have table display, we have none display. Of course, for every property, you know, we have initial, we have inherit. Yesterday we discussed about them. For every property, these are common. Now the point is, so display, inline display, block display, grid, how do we use them? How we generally manage them? So display inline, so that means let's see examples for them, how we can manage them. So inline display is nothing but we can keep the contents side by side. So let's create one example here. So display, for that initially, so I'm creating so a simple form. Let's create a simple form. Okay, in the form we have a div. So in that we have input type is equal to text. Okay, and that have a placeholder, so some username, and we have another div. So that is so having another input type is equal to password, and the placeholder as password. So password. Okay, and we have another div. So we have a button, say login. Now usually all the divs are kept, so in the design all are kept one below another. If you want to keep all the contents side by side, then simply you can just define here. So form, for the form we can set display as inline. display inline will arrange all the contents here side by side. But important is, so we have to keep, so not just for the form, inside the form for the div display is inline, not form inline. So that means, so inside the form for the divs we have to keep, because form contains divs. These all divs must be inline side by side. That means it should apply for divs inside the form. Then in the form for the divs, when you keep inline, they will be side by side. That means you can keep the content side by side. So this kind of arrangement is very common. So when you are designing, you want the content side by side, then you can keep inline. So display block will keep line by line. It will be line by line. So by default it is block. We can keep inline. Inline, it will be side by side. Not only this, suppose if you are designing an ordered list and we have list item, some say electronics. So we have list item like footwear. So like list item like fashion, like this. I want the list items. So in the ordered list items must display inline. Then it will keep all of them side by side. I can keep them line by line, side by side. And of course, others you can adjust here. Suppose you can keep border 2 pixel solid, some black, some, and you can see the border will come. We can keep some width as 200 pixels. So the width will be adjusted for that. So we are adjusting some padding, so 20 pixel. So padding is adjusted for 5 pixel. So padding is adjusted for them. So we are keeping the content side by side. So then we can manage inline. Inline is used to keep the content side by side. Block is used to display one below another. That is display inline display. This is inline display. Okay. Now we have another display. So we have block display is nothing but, so block display keeps the content line by line. It keeps the content line by line. So we have grid display. Let's see how grid display works. That means display grid. How you can use the grid display. Grid display requires some important attributes. That means actually grid display is used to arrange content into rows and columns. Actually it requires additional attributes. What are the attributes required for grid display? It requires grid template columns, and it requires grid gap, it requires grid column, and it requires grid row. So what is that? I will show you. Grid template columns, grid gap, and grid columns. In few examples already we once tried, but detail we will see now. Actually, so grid columns specifies number of columns and column width and width. So if you want, so here we already know that it defines the number of columns and width. And width can be defined in pixels or fractions. Fractions means FR. And I already told you that page supports 12 fractions of columns. That means 12 columns you can divide in a page maximum. That is the fractions. That means it can be from 1 to 12 actually. So, and what is gap? Gap is nothing but space. It is the space between columns, how much space you want. Grid column indicates that in which column you want the content. Grid row indicates that in which row you want the content. The content. That is how we need to arrange the information. Let's see how we can manage this, how we can define the content and use the content. For that, we need to know how we can arrange the information correctly. Let's create one simple design and see how these are used. Grid, template, columns, and all, how we are used. Let's create here. So grid demo.html. Let's create a page. HTML head. So, and let's keep the title as grid. Head and title as grid. Okay. And grid layout, that is okay. Layout. Now we have the body. In the body, so I am defining header. Okay, here I will just link relation equal to style sheet. Href is equal to, so that is fonts. So fonts / fonts. So in the fonts, so we have CSS all.css. Okay, here we will keep in the header a span, and class is equal to FA shopping cart. Okay, and here we write some text as some Amazon shopping. Okay, that is the header. So we have header. You can see this is the header. That is the header. Okay. Now next point is, so we want here the other options, like under the header we are keeping the content. So the content is like some article, and here I said some Amazon home, and here we are keeping some paragraphs of information. We will keep there, right? Let's get some paragraphs information and keep there. So let's copy some paragraphs information there. So we have the paragraphs information here. That is one paragraph. Okay. So some paragraphs of information, copy. So we have some 2-3 paragraphs of information. Okay. Now this is article. Article contains this information. Okay. Then I will give another aside or nav here. I'll say shopping categories. Aside. Under this, we will create an unordered list. So in that we have a list item, and here we are defining a span, and so just we will add class as FA and some FATV like this, and here we will write some electronics. Okay, similarly another list items. So this is shoe prints, and this is footwear, and another one is fashion, and here we have as t-shirt. This is the side, and below this we will have a footer. In the footer, so we have some ampersand copy, that is copyright. So copyright 2020. So Amazon something. We can add like this. Okay. Now finally, when you see all the content looks like this, that's normal. We need to arrange everything in a proper way. let's see how we can arrange everything in a proper way. Now make sure that all this content is in the body. Directly instead of body, I will keep all this in a div. And this div we will give a class as some container. Okay. Initially that doesn't matters. Okay. Now let's go to the style. In that, so container has a lot of content. And container should display all of these in a grid form. So display, we have to use grid. Okay, display grid, you see there is no difference here. Means display grid is no difference here. So because after displaying grid, you have to use grid template columns. How many columns you want to separate? I want 2 columns. Okay. How much fractions you want? Left column 2 fractions and right column 10 fractions. That is how I want. 2 columns I want. Then you can see that it shows like this. Left column 2 columns, left column, so that is 2 fractions. Right column 3 fractions. That's okay, good. But here the point is, so this is the aside. Now that is aside. This is article. This is header. This is article. So this is aside. And you have footer. This is footer. Generally, now we need to arrange the contents in a correct way. So if you want, you can give some gap. We can write grid gap. Grid gap how much? Suppose 30 pixel gap. You can give gap, little gap will be increased. Grid gap will be increased. Remember, this is a responsive design. That means if it goes on to mobile, it fits on to mobile, responsive design. Here comes the key point. So for header footer, I can give some effects like header and footer. Initially, I will put some background color as background color tomato, something, and color as white. Okay, text align as center. But observe carefully, background is applied. Background is applied for them. But see how they are occupied. This is very important. Actually, what we want here is, so here we can keep some border radius as some 20 pixel. Okay, fine. So 10 pixel. Okay, fine. Now the point here is padding also I will give. Padding is 10 pixel. Some space, fine. Now the point is, this is header. So in which row you want the header? I want the header in first row. That means, so we have to go to header and we have to tell in which row you want to display. That you have to define grid row. In which row you want? I want to display in the grid row, first row. Okay. That means header will be in the first row. So that is okay. Then another point is, it will be in first row. How many columns so it should occupy? From which column to which column it should occupy? That means how many columns it should occupy. So that you have to define by using grid column. In which column you want? I want it from the first column. Okay. So to how many columns? So I say 2 columns. Total how many columns? 2 columns. And how much it is occupying? Only 1. That means it will be like this. I said it should occupy 2 to 2. Then it will display like this. Okay, only first one we have given. That means this should be applied. That means it should start from second column and end at second column. It should start from second column, end at second column. That means it should be in second column. Okay, fine. So because still you will see complex because others need to be arranged in, right? That is fine. What about footer? Footer. So in which row you want footer? Actually, first row is header, second row is our content, third row is footer. That means footer, I want grid row as 3. Okay, how many columns? This also grid column. So grid column, we can define 3 or 2 of 2. That means from second column to second column we want to display, and that is also defined. Now footer and header are defined. Okay. Now between header and footer, I want this aside. Now article, right? Article. I will go to article. Where you want this article? In which column you want this article? I want this article in second column. Then we have to give grid column 2. That means article will be in the second column, and you can see it is in the second column. Now it looks like it is working for us, right? It is working for us. That means article will be in the second column. So header is in the second column. This is in the second column. And this should be where you want to keep this aside. So you need to keep that aside. Second column, but which row? Row also it is good to tell. In which row you want this article. So I want this also 2 to 2. And which row you want? So I want a grid row. In which row you want? Second row. Article should be in second row. Okay, it is in the second row. Article is in the second row. Fine. Second row, second column. Now what about aside? Aside contains navigation. So where you want to keep this? I want to keep this in the first column, second row. First column, second row. How you will write it now? So what you have to do? Grid columns. So we have to grid row. We have to define grid row. In which row you want? Second row I want. Okay, second row. In which column you want? Grid column. I want in first column. Okay. So that means, so it will keep in the left side. You can see it will keep in the left side. It will keep in the left side. You can keep the height, width, so other options common. Suppose I said border. So 1 pixel, solid, and tomato. That is the color. And text align to center. We defined text align to center for that. So means it's your wish how you want to display. So aside. So I just keep this border, and we will put only right border. That means not all the borders. Then better we'll say border right. Border right. So 2 pixel dotted border. So tomato like this. Color I am defining. For aside only right border will come. Then you can see the right border will be there. Will be there for the content. You can see it will display in this way. This is the responsive design, how you can create. Now when I go to the inspect, and when I change the device, the mobile like content. So according to that content device width, it is adjusting the content for you. It is adjusting the content for you according to the device width. It is managing everything for you. This makes a responsive design for us. Right? How to design so multiple columns. That means here we used only 2 columns, left column, right column. That means here, suppose I am defining the header and footer. So grid column. So I defined as 1. Grid column as 1. Later you have to learn about span. And I suppose I said 2. So I defined like this. It's not adjusted. Why? Because for that we have to use grid span also. Grid row should have a span option also. That I will show in another design, how to handle it, right? We can span means merging, how many columns to merge. That means call span you can give. So initially, suppose I defined, so you need to learn how to merge also. We will see that. Initially, we just learned one point in which column we have to keep, which row we have to keep. If you have any another content, suppose you have a logo. So that means suppose somewhere I designed a div. So this is a logo. So this is class as logo, class as logo. So we have logo here. You see logo comes here. Now you want to keep it in a correct place actually. It is already there, but you have to keep in a correct place. That means logo will have a correct place here. So what is the place you need to define for that? So grid column. So grid row first. Grid row, it should be in first row. So grid column, it should be in first column. First row, first column. Then it will arrange in that location. Suppose we have border as 2 pixel solid and red, something like this, and border radius, so we defined as suppose 20 pixel, and the logo will be like this, so suppose we define some padding as 10 pixel, so that will keep the padding to 10 pixel like this. You can keep the content arranged at any specific location you want. So first you have to design the rows and columns. We need to arrange the content into rows and columns. So this is displaying the grid. Now based on this, we can try some examples now. So majority, you see websites like online newspapers will be there. So suppose online newspaper, so websites. When you look at these online newspaper websites, they contain lot of information arranged into columns. So columnar formatting. So this is the e-paper actually, agree. Yeah, this is the e-paper. And it will display this in the columns. So we can arrange everything into such columns. So, and we can design such columns. I will show you how to design such columns. If we know about these columns, and one more option is there, multiple columns. Once you know multiple columns and grid types, so then we can easily arrange such contents and display the content like newspaper, like things we can design. So some more responsive designs now we can design with these options that we will see in our next session, right? So tomorrow we will finish working with some responsive designs and a few more options. Then we can go into Bootstrap and we can learn how to use Bootstrap to make the design more faster and easy, right? How to use Bootstrap in our CSS. In tomorrow's session, we'll continue with this, okay? Right.